All right. Hey, everyone. Meteorologist Aaron Tuttle here with you. It is Tuesday night. It's about 9:35. We're going to talk about Mother Nature, so thanks for joining me. We're going to see what she's up to. We're going to see if there's any difference than what we talked about yesterday or what you watched today at Facebook Live at lunchtime. Now, I will tell you, if you missed our live today at lunch, you missed out. That's all I will say. I will let the other birds chirp in to tell you what you missed. I'm just saying, you don't want to miss a live. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, thanks you guys up there on YouTube for watching, checking in. Also on Periscope and Twitter, and also on both Facebook pages, both the main page and also my private page for you wonderful fan supporters, both on Patreon or also Facebook fan subscription, Subscribe Star, even PayPal donations. You guys are awesome, so I appreciate that. That helps me fund what I do here. All right, let's get on with the show, shall we? I know why you're here. You want to talk about tornadoes, don't you? You guys are some sick people. I always want to talk about tornadoes. That's the reason why I'm here. I'll talk about it too. So here's a look at the Storm Prediction Center outlook for tomorrow. This is in the afternoon and evening hours. And they do paint that enhanced region here across western and southwestern Oklahoma on into Texas. Well, that's the overall general risk, and they kind of break it down to tornado, wind, and hail. Now, let's get on to the specifics, because this is a very big paintbrush. Tomorrow, there will be a very small paintbrush used to really fine-tune things and get these a little bit smaller. All right, just so you know, this is the official wording of the Storm Prediction Center. They're meteorologists, government meteorologists like myself, and their entire role is to look for severe weather and then break it down into the categories and give the reasonings behind it, which is kind of what I do for you anyway. They do it at a more scientific level, so I'm going to break down what they kind of say in layman's terms so we can all understand together. But right now they're talking about there being a pretty good cap on the dry line tomorrow across the eastern Texas Panhandle and western Texas. They will think that the cap will break in certain areas along the dry line, not the whole line though. Let's see, it mentions that the mid and high level flow should remain fairly modest with effective bulk shear values around 30-35 knots, which is only marginally supportive of supercells. Now remember, to get those supercell producing tornadoes, you actually have to have a supercell to begin with. Well, we're not going to have the best shear to support a long-lived, robust supercell is what they're saying. Still, though, moderate to strong instability exists, and so any initially discrete storm may pose a threat for maybe some very large hail, which means greater than excess of 2 inches in diameter. That's given the presence of the extreme instability, the lapse rates, the buoyancy, yada yada. However, a quick transition to more of a cluster linear mode appears likely with just a few hours of the initial convective development. AKA, if storms start in the eastern Texas panel at 4 o'clock, by the time they get into western Oklahoma by 6 to 7, they may already start to line out into a squall line, which means our tornado threat goes down poop shoot. Totally fine with me. Severe damaging winds, however, will become the main threat during the evening hours across parts of western and central Oklahoma after this mode transition occurs. And then with a lot of downdraft potential. So there could be numerous severe wind gusts, and I'll show you some interesting data on that here in a second. Eventually, these storms will encounter more convective inhibition, in other words, a cap will be stronger, and therefore will continue to weaken with time. It says any tornado threat will probably remain limited to the first few hours of initial semi-discrete storm mode. All right, that's important. I've already had a few people send me a picture of one of the TV guys that painted a moderate risk for tornadoes across the entire western third of Oklahoma. It's garbage. All right, I just read you a scientific discussion which says it's garbage. I'm going to tell you it's garbage from my point of view. So if you saw that, ignore it. Let's get down to the details. All right, so here's a closer view from the National Weather Service. It does paint that enhanced risk out here across west central Oklahoma on into the Texas area. It does continue out here. It's just not painted on the map for these guys. Otherwise, for tornado potential, I would actually put very low. I would only expect to see maybe 1 or 2 here in far western Oklahoma with those supercells as they cross over the state line. Hail initially up to maybe baseballs, but otherwise I think golf balls will be the primary mode here. I'll show you that in a second. And then maximum wind speeds. This is going to be interesting. 60 to 80, but I'm thinking we might see a wind gust higher than 80 miles per hour. All right, I'll tell you that reason for that here in a second. Tornado potential. I would, this is just me massaging the National Weather Service outlook. I think we can cut this down to more like this area here, all right, for the low category, and keep everything else almost very low to non-existent, just so you know. And this will be fine-tuned for tomorrow as well. Again, we're getting within that 48-hour window, so the data gets better and better, right? So the initial issue with tomorrow afternoon is the wind field on the forecast sounding, very weak here in the mid-level. This is 20 knots, around 500 millibars from a chaotic southwesterly component. This is not conducive for supercell, long-lived, perfect structure. The surface winds are also weak. They're about 10 to 15 knots, all the way up through about, good grief, 1,000 meters. The cloud base is not too bad here across western Oklahoma. This is actually one of the most favorable models for that. Other models have the cloud base way higher, 1,500 meters to 2,000 meters. Again, that's not conducive for tornadoes, and it's got extremely strong caps. There's a lot of things working against storms favoring tornadoes for tomorrow. However, they do have some significant hail in the analog department, up to around 3 inches in diameter on some of the worst case scenarios, and plenty of instability to produce a few storms. All right, so we got that out of the way. So here's how things ought to play out. All right, we're going to look at the high resolution short-term model that we have now. And this is in 4 o'clock range for tomorrow afternoon. So here's a look at those supercells out here in the eastern Texas panhandle. There's a couple there. It's already getting to a cluster of multicellular junk south and west of there in the model data, indicating that, again, those conditions aren't exactly favorable. The dry line sits up something like this, by the way. So the dry line is a little bit further west. So initiation, again, is going to be in the eastern quarter of the Texas panhandle before they start to move into western Oklahoma. So just keep that in mind. It's going to be a while. All right, so we go into the next couple of hours. Let's go to 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. So they've crossed over. They're now into western Oklahoma. But you can see it's a squall line, folks. With squall lines, you get pockets of damaging wind, some small to medium-sized hail, usually nothing too crazy. And on occasion, you get a QLCS-type tornado along the leading edge. Those can pretty much happen in any type of squall situation, but what we were focused on earlier was the supercell type tornado, the ones that can get really out of control. Regardless, as we head into the 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock hour, the line's pretty wimpy. However, I got to show you something that may be kind of wimpy looking on radar. What you have to focus on sometimes is the northern fringe of this line when it decays. When it decays, there's a lot of momentum that sometimes gets transferred down. I'm going to show you what happens to the winds across Oklahoma City as this line decays on the north side. You can get some severe thunderstorm criteria winds, which is 58 miles per hour, and we're going to see higher than that according to the model data when this event starts to unfold in that direction. Anyway, so we go on to the midnight hour and then some. This stuff is vaporized across southeast Oklahoma. All right, so the main kicker, the main issue for severe weather tomorrow, as we talked about last night, as we talked about at lunchtime today, is still along this corridor from basically I-40 east-west and I-35 north-south here from Oklahoma City. So it's this southwestern quadrant of the state. And of course, you guys down there in northwest Texas will be seeing this line as well. Okay, now let me just show you that. I was using that one model to kind of give you an idea because I like that one for right now. But here's a few others just to show you that the idea is the same. So here's a short-term model showing that linear look of the storms coming in at 7 o'clock in western Oklahoma. Here's another one of these CAM models, same kind of idea. What you'll notice, though, when you start to see these bowing structures in the model data, that indicates cold pooling. Cold pooling means a lot of air rushing out ahead of the line. That cuts off tornadic, QLCS type circulations, but it also creates the wind damage issue. So here's another view there. I don't like this one. This model is always a fantasy model. I always discount that one. This one over here for the other one, it's not bad. But again, I think mainly I-40 points southward, so it'll be kind of rare to see them north of there. And then finally, the one we were looking at a minute ago, it sometimes gets a little carried away, but it's got some pockets of hail in there as well. So the hail and the wind will be the primary issue for tomorrow evening as this line continues to march east and then slowly die out. Again, that's 7 o'clock. If we go to the 10 o'clock hour, just to let you know that that line is already moving into Oklahoma City metro area by that point, but a lot of it's fallen apart and not much left of it compared to what it was earlier in the day. The Texas Tech model I love sometimes. I like the look of it here the last couple of days. So it's got a few of those supercell storms crossing over eastern Texas panhandle into far western Oklahoma, but then quickly lining out an hour or two after that, and then just kind of a cluster storms that weakens over central and eventually southern Oklahoma with time. So again, all the models say the exact same thing. All right, that's good for a confidence booster on a forecaster. Significant tornado parameter. What are the best ingredients for a tornado? Guess what? They're not out here. All right, this is the state border of Texas. Out here across far eastern counties, from Childress northward, few spots, if you squeeze the atmosphere down just right, is the best opportunity to see a tornado. That's stretching it because the cloud base is very high. You can get away with a high cloud base in the eastern Texas Panhandle to a degree, but again, they're fairly high up there. Matter of fact, there's probably better conditions up here where it's more capped along the warm front intersection, dryland intersection up here in southwestern Kansas. So if a rogue storm were to go up here and then kind of hug that boundary, that actually has a better shot at producing a tornado than anything down here in southwest Oklahoma. All right. Here is a look at the hail sizes. Scale on the right in the green is anywhere from a ½ inch to about 1.5 inches. There are some greens in these pockets of the storm signal here. So again, about golf ball size hail or less is the majority of the signals with this. All right, now we're going to get into the fun stuff. This is the damaging wind aspect. I say fun stuff. Remember, I'm a meteorologist, so I do have to enjoy the weather, or I would not really enjoy what I do. But here's a look at these darker brown shadings, which is up around 70 to 75 knots. Knots is not miles per hour. So it's going to be real windy in some of these storms. These are pockets of storms here. Notice the northern edge is quite strong, right? Southern edge has got some pockets in it as well. The northern edge, though, is kind of where it starts to deteriorate a little bit. Now let me show you a broader view of that once these storms get into central Oklahoma and they start to fall apart. See all this brown? This represents a scale of about 64 to 76. There's a pocket, I think it may be 80 miles per hour. There's max, 80 miles per hour on the screen. So there are pockets, the model suggests we could see winds up to around 80 miles per hour here over central Oklahoma by, what time is this? Midnight. As these storms move through that 10 to 11 to 12 o'clock hour and then decay on top of us, we might get some damaging winds coming down as a result of that. You might not get hardly any rain out of it. In other words, it might just be sprinkling at the time, but you'll get the windfall with it. So that's my focus for tomorrow, is the threat of some damaging wind, both in pockets in the early stages and then maybe a little more widespread damaging wind as the line decays in the late evening hours. Any threat for tornado activity, I think, is confined to supercell type structures in the eastern Texas Panhandle. They might try to hold together just long enough to produce something as they cross over, but all the data indications are it should line out rather quickly, which produces more of a damaging wind and some hail event, and then the hail trails off and the wind kind of keeps going as we head into the later evening hours. So this is not the typical classic setup for May, where we've got to worry about tornadoes, over a larger area. This is not that one. We might have one before the month is over, but tomorrow is not it. I'm totally fine with that. It looks good. But I want you to keep all this in mind, though, when you see other forecasts out there, and if they're all gloom and doom, and remember, I got to tell you this, if it leads, it bleeds. It's the news business. They're hurting. Remember, they're hurting because it's a quiet storm season overall. This is the biggest monthly draw for both ratings and when it comes to finances for selling advertising. So they have to really get you to watch, and to get you to watch, they got to instill just a little bit extra more fear that you really need to watch because, by golly, we're watching it and it looks like it's going to be a really bad situation. Well, listen, due diligence, don't believe everything you see or read, especially when they're tapping into your fear button, because that's a motivator for you and typically it's on the negative side. So I'm telling you what really is going to happen. I showed you both what the Storm Prediction Center said, literally, and then I told you, kind of broke that down for you what it means, and I showed you the data to accompany that. So here's the deal. Tomorrow is another day. The storms won't start till late afternoon anyway, so we still have some time to see if anything new changes in the model data. Right now I don't see indications that it would. I don't see any new trends. I see this all staying the same. But if it does, obviously we'll update, and I'll still keeping an eye on things in the late afternoon and early evening time frame. So if it does look like a couple of those storms may produce a tornado or two, I'll be on to cover those. Otherwise, it may just be a wind event. Now, if the wind gets a little out of control, keep that in mind that it can do as much damage as a small tornado. That can do as much damage as a small EF0, or maybe even possibly an EF1 tornado, if those wind speeds can get in excess of 80 miles per hour on the wind gust side. So again, that can happen. That's straight line winds. And some people get those confused. You get a lot of wind damage, and you say, I swear it was a tornado. Well, if all the debris that you have, your shed, the roof, and all that stuff, the fence, is all blowing in one direction, all east, or all southeast, or all northeast, that was straight line winds. Now, if it's all over the place, stringing hanging from this tree and this roof, and it's two houses over, and that's going to be typically a tornado. That's kind of how you can simplify that without getting an official damage survey. So hopefully that's helpful. All right. Oh, I didn't start my closed captioning, or rather my open captioning. I left that off. Nick says, explain Yom Kippur. I don't know what that means, but whatever. But Facebook did provide closed captioning at the bottom. We talked about that today at lunch. So you get double the captioning with me. So anyway, come on, Aaron. Pay attention next time. That's all right. You'll get them next time. Go get them, Tiger. All right, what I'm going to do is put up your comments real quick, answer a couple questions, and then we'll turn you loose. Me jump on you guys for YouTube real quick. Glad to see you in the house. Got a lot of you leaving comments. That's awesome. So that's good. Yeah, Shannon. Open captioning stuck on. Yeah, a little late for that there. Thanks there, Jody. On top of it. I know. She's funny. She's coming in to show me that the open captioning was stuck. It's like, oh my goodness. Let's see. Yeah. Don't read too much into that open captioning, guys. It's just funny. So there you go. All right, so it's a Jewish holiday, and for my open captioning was celebrating it by itself without me even interjecting. It's interesting. All right, so let's see. You guys on Twitter and Periscope, always feel free to leave some comments. I always check you guys as well. And then let me go to you guys on my closed group Facebook page. Mute that. Okay, so Amanda's in the house. Larry's here, all checking in. Denise, Jariah's hilarious as always. Tracy, shout out from the Oklahoma nurses. Oh, y'all are awesome. Thanks again for all your work these last couple months. Who watches any other weather and why? That's what Phil says, and Phil is correct. Why would you watch any other weather? I mean, seriously, you get it all here. Scott's he's done past Wednesday already. He's already on the next storm. He's asking about Thursday. Christy, Jody could bench press me. Jody's got some guns. I don't know if y'all seen them there. She could outflex me any day. Let's see. I'm glad y'all like the captioning. Like I said, the Facebook gives the closed captioning at the bottom, at least on the main page, but that's new this year, so I don't know when that actually started. But you can always watch that way. It's on your phone, and then I don't know all the ins and outs of that yet, so I'm still learning that myself. Any stories for tonight? Denise wants to know. So again, if you guys missed lunchtime, you missed a heck of a story. We had story time today at lunch. That was somehow just happened. It was hysterical, but it just happened. Okay, so let me go to the main page here real quick. Okay, hit that mute button. I can only read about the last 30 comments. Keep that in mind. So if you have any questions for me, try to hold them off till the end. Hello, any severe weather for Lawton? Nate, you ask that every time. My answer is always yes. Let's see. Keep getting error loading. Heather. Oh, man. What's up with Facebook? You're welcome, Martha. You're welcome, Janice. Jude. Why are you guys getting errors? That is so strange. I missed the start. Danielle wants to know what day we're talking about. It's for tomorrow evening. Storms for Thursday night. Timothy wants to know. So yes, we're going to have storms on Thursday. You guys need to read my blog. Have you not read my blog? Oh, you wouldn't like me when I'm angry. I turn green and just everything just like busts out of this shirt, and then I just start growling. So go read my blog. So anyway, on the blog I did mention storms for both Thursday, Friday, possibly Saturday, and also Sunday. And we're going to take one. We're going to get to one each day at a time. I know you guys are anxious to get your anxiety built up now for Thursday, but you're just going to have to wait. Keep it in control. Hang on that one more day. But there will be some storms in northern Oklahoma and moving into central Oklahoma during the evening hours on Thursday. And like I said, I'm sure we'll see at least a tornado or two at some point here this week. It's the middle of May. It's the peak of our tornado season. It's bound to happen. All right. Just got on with Mustang to be part of this, Amanda. Okay, so Amanda, everybody, is LTTP. I will stop this video, and you can watch the replay, but the short version is, yes, we're going to have some storms move in the evening hours, mainly a wind event by this time it gets to the metro. And we can have some winds gusting up to 80 miles per hour around town, just to let you know. That'd be between the hours of 10 and midnight, roughly. James says, you help my anxiety unlike other meteorologists. That is awesome. Thanks, James. Appreciate that. That's kind of kind of my niche in this whole market. Just a little inside info for you guys. For those new to this market or those new to the weather porn that we call it, and trust me, that is a term that is used and thrown around because it's legitimate, it's true. Fortunately, it happens. It's ratings driven, and unfortunately, I hate to tell you guys this, but you're part of the problem. I know you didn't want to hear that. I know you didn't, because nobody wants responsibility these days for anything. But you're drawn mentally to fear, gloom, and doom. You're programmed for it, so you're drawn to it. So as long as that happens, that means you're going to keep watching that source, which means they'll keep giving you that source. So really my only antidote for that is to turn it off. And it's hard to do. I get it. But that's the solution. I didn't say you'd like the solution, but that's the solution. But when the market, when I got into it in the 2001, it was already kind of, a little amped up and getting out of control. And then from 2001 onward, it just became this who can outdo each other in everything. And I worked with Rick Mitchell, and he was the most laid-back dude I'd ever seen when it comes to severe weather. So I kind of learned to kind of tone it down just working for him. And, I could always start this back up. I don't know why I talked about it not working and not starting it back up. Squirrel. So anyway, what's wrong with you, Aaron? Sidetrack. He was so calm, cool, and collected. I mean, even when the tornadoes happened, I was like, this dude doesn't get excited for nothing. Of course, I was much younger back then, so I was still excited. But I learned how you can still present the information and not scare the crap out of everyone, and do it calmly and get people to take action and take shelter. You don't have to scare the bejesus out of them to get them to take shelter. You just tell them, hey, this is a tornado. Guess what? That survival instinct kicks in and they take shelter. So anyway, all right. Scott. I actually try not to talk about them at all. You guys bring it up every now and then, so I'll address it. But I just stick to what I do. Like, it's the old expression, you do you, I'll do me. Let the chips fall where they may. I'm just telling you, I'm here as an alternative to what you get in this market if you're looking for it. That's kind of, I'll leave it at that. All right, I am finished up. It is 10 o'clock. I get out of here, and I'm sure a lot of you want to go watch that gloom and doom forecast that's coming up in about 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Trust me, you'll get an earful. I'll actually tell you what, homework. I want you to do it. I want you to watch Channel 4. I want you to watch Channel 9 and Channel 5. Now, it's difficult because they all come on at the same time. For the main weather, it's like 10:17. Give or take a few seconds. And they did it on purpose, so you'll stick with one and not flip around. But if you can do it, pick the one that you think is going to produce the worst language and watch that. My guess is 4, followed by a tie between 9 and 5. Honestly, I think they're all the same. But probably 4 worse than the other 2. I think the other 2 are neck and neck with 4. Is who can out-scare you the most. So watch that. And then remember what I told you here on this deal. And then go, okay, I think I see what he's talking about. I get it. Knowledge is power. All right, with that, I'm out of here. You guys have a great night, and we'll talk again tomorrow. Be safe out there, and I'll keep an eye on things for you. I probably won't be doing a live tomorrow at lunch, just so you know. But I will be doing any cut-ins, any updates in the evening, if required, if a tornado looks like it's going to be imminent and or likely. All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks again for supporting me as well. Guys, have a good night. Bye.